Welcome to CityWise. I'm your host, Tiana Stevens. CityWise is produced by the City of Rochester to shine a spotlight on city living at its best. Well, a new book about a puppy saved from a kill shelter and the friendships he's made with local heroes tells an inspirational story of hope and new beginnings, and best of all, it's a true tale. Hans, the journey of a kill shelter puppy and homeless veterans, was written by Lynette Loomis, and sales of the book benefit the Veterans Outreach Center, which is headed by Todd Baxter. Lynette and Todd, thank you both for coming on today. Thank you especially for bringing our sleepy friend, Hans. What a treat. Congratulations on the book, Lynette. And I should mention you're a longtime board member of the Veterans Outreach Center. Why is this work so important to you?
My brother was a Vietnam veteran who was not treated necessarily well when he returned from Vietnam, and my former husband was a Vietnam-era Marine, and I think those experiences they had sort of shaped my view of veterans. So when I was invited to be on the board of Veterans Outreach Center, I thought this is near and dear to my heart, and I said yes, and I've been committed to trying to do what small part I could to make life better for the people who served us so admirably.
And Todd, what is the mission of the Veterans Outreach Center? What are some of the services and programs?
Well, the mission's, we're trying to fill a gap that the VA can't provide for veterans. You know, whether it's a veteran that might not be eligible for VA services, for instance, a dishonorable discharge veteran might not be able to go to the VA, but we're going to serve all veterans, whether they were honorably discharged, dishonorably discharged. If they served their country for one day, they can get services at the Veterans Outreach Center. We obviously have a homeless shelter. That's where Hans lives, and he's one of our integration tools that we have down there to release some of the anxiety as veterans are coming to us. We do mental health wellness, and we do a ton of job training and job placement. Last year we placed almost 400 veterans in employment.
And Hans is kind of a puppy. He's only not even 2 years old.
Right, he is still very much a puppy, a well-trained puppy, but
a very good boy.
Has all the joyfulness that a puppy can bring into a home.
Where did Hans's story begin?
It really began down south. Somebody had taken Hans, realized she couldn't take care of him and couldn't find a home, took him to a kill shelter, which is always sad. And Rudy's Rescue, which was founded by Amy Holtz here, through a series of drivers brought him up north. And Amy was very selective as to what kind of a home Hans would best fit in. And he ended up at Richards and Otto's house, both part of Veterans Outreach Center.
So wonderful. And how did the idea for the book come along?
I'm not exactly sure, to be honest.
You're just the writer.
It's sort of evolved. Obviously his story captures your heart, but our veterans have some great stories to tell as well, and we wanted to make sure that people see veterans as the men that they are. They're just not a category, lumping all veterans together. And so Hans and our veterans have a lot in common. They want a new start, they want a sense of belonging, a safe place to live, and in the case of Hans, pretty exclusively a lot of belly rubs.
Sure, and Todd, Rochester recently earned the distinction of Functional Zero. What exactly does that mean, and how did the Veterans Outreach Center play a role?
Well, just a few short years ago in the veterans community and the homeless population here in Monroe County, we had a significant problem with homeless veterans. We had more homeless veterans than we had service providers or beds available for them. Through a lot of hard work through both Monroe County, the City of Rochester, the Veterans Administration, the federal government, lots of local nonprofits and churches, we were able to get that down to what we call Functional Zero, which means at a given point in time every month, we know where every homeless veteran is in Monroe County. We got a bed available for them and a service provider ready to take them in and provide services and hopefully get them back on their feet. So that's quite a declaration to be able to make. We're the first large city in New York to be able to make that declaration that we have the homeless population under control. There are still homeless veterans, and there always will be. We're discharging over 250,000 veterans a year from the Department of Defense. So we know there's always going to be work to do, but we have it under control. We're now proactive.
How did you know that Hans was the right dog for the job?
Well, when we were introduced by Amy to Hans, we were looking for this animal that can come in and be that calming effect for veterans. Sometimes they come to us at 3 o'clock in the morning in total dire straits, and there's a lot of anxiety to move into a homeless shelter with a bunch of other veterans. But when they see Hans, they're waiting at the door that doesn't judge, doesn't really care, just wants to, get the belly rubbed or go for a walk and be your best friend. We knew this was the correct dog for that because of his demeanor, his attitude. As you can see, he's very relaxed. Well, he loves to play, he loves to hunt, loves to swim, but he also has that demeanor where he can just sit and
listen.
Petting is a therapy sometimes, just petting the dog and feeling that sense of comfort that this animal is not judging me.
Sure. Is he the first dog to hold this position? Is this something new?
He has a brand new idea we came up with that we thought would be a wonderful transitional tool for the veterans, and also what we found is the kids, the kids of the veterans that might come over and visit. The dog's been a wonderful tool for that, to get the kids and release some of that anxiety and come over and visit Hans.
Absolutely.
And then they can visit Dad also.
Lynette, tell us about some of the veterans that we'll meet in the book.
Well, the book begins by one of our own board members who is also part of the Rochester City Police Force, and he lost 2 friends who took their lives after returning home. And it begins with that, and Marv's point is that we should never lose one of our brothers through suicide. It evolves. One of our young veterans had been on several hundred missions where he took out valued assets. So you can imagine the emotional trauma that he went through, being shot at time and time again.
Sure.
Another veteran had decided the Air Force was going to be his career, and he ended up with spinal stenosis and had to be discharged honorably, but that means his career path is forever altered.
Wow.
And then we had some guys with some serious physical pain issues who became addicted to drugs and wanted a fresh start. We also interviewed a mom of somebody who had been living in his car, went through Veterans Court, which is a wonderful program here in Rochester, where veterans who have made some poor choices get help instead of incarceration. So there's a wide range. And the mother of one of the vets talks about how difficult it was for her to say to her son, "Until you're straight again, you can't live here."
Right.
We also have a military wife, and she's the one who reminds us, for some guys, it's easier to face battle than to talk about your feelings.
So many stories and perspectives told in this one book. How did you go about selecting which veterans and family members to be interviewed? And what was the research process like for you?
It was pretty informal. The first call was that anybody who would like to share their story to service other veterans by telling their tale, to help other vets know you're not alone in some of your challenges. And then as I began to be concerned about filling out the book, I would call Todd and go, "I need more veterans, I need more veterans."
Yeah.
And then we would pick some people and other people would come forward.
How did they feel about sharing their story and their stories of Hans with you?
I think a couple of the guys said it was sort of cathartic for them. It was actually part of the healing process for them. We were very respectful, although many of the men said you could use full names. We just use their first name or initials because we want to protect their privacy. Maybe 10 years from now they'll feel differently about using full names. So we protected their confidentiality, and they all vetted their stories. They said, "Yes, you got it right."
Right. That's nice. Todd, along with, or when he's not getting a belly rub, what are his official duties?
Well, his job in the house is just to be there, to be a dog, to be a companion, to be a responsibility. The veterans move in with us, and it's a very structured homeless environment, if you will, where all the veterans have chores, all the veterans eat dinner together at 5 p.m. No one turns on a TV till all the chores are done in the evening. And Hans is one of the responsibilities, except this is a living responsibility, so it gives them that extra feeling of, I'm actually taking care of a living being now. So 4 o'clock in the morning, Hans wants to go out. There's a veteran getting out of bed to walk Hans, and we got to make sure he's not overfed. There's a lot of policies and procedures around Hans to make sure he's not abused or overfed. Yeah, so it's a great tool there to give responsibility to a couple of veterans. It's a great tool to, like I said, bring the families back. And he's great for the staff. He comes down to the Veterans Outreach Center on our main campus and visits, and it just changes the whole atmosphere like it did in your studio today.
Sure, yeah, it sure did. Everybody was up here.
Yeah.
Well, Lynette, how's the community reaction been so far to the book? I see a lot of people posting on the Amazon thread, you should write a children's book, featuring just Hans. What have you heard so far?
I've heard positive comments. I think a lot of people, it takes them back to when they had a dog, and that was certainly the case for some of our veterans. And one comment, and I asked her, please don't just tell me, write a review. She has a grandson in the military, and he's been deployed twice, and she said, I didn't get it. But now that I read the book, I understand, and I will be a better listener for him when he wants to talk.
Sure. My next question was going to be, what do you hope the takeaway will be from this? And you kind of answered that. Todd, do you want to add on?
Yeah, we're putting so much time and effort into these veterans, and as Lynette said earlier, you know, we should never forget what we did to the Vietnam era guys and gals when they came home, and one of the things we got to do is keep on championing the veterans and their cause. Whether we believe in war fighting or not, there's wonderful Americans that are volunteering to serve their country, and sometimes they need this extra step, and the VOC is here to provide that, and so are many other agencies. And we'll go all out, even when it comes to unique ideas like, would a dog do us any good in the veterans home?
Right.
You know, those are things that other people can't do, and it's wonderful. I think being in a nonprofit now, after coming from government, that we could try new ideas like this, and and this is obviously a good success story. But you know, it's just fun to be able to take care of these guys and gals that have given so much, and their families have given so much. This is just a great way to give back.
I know this book, part of it tells the story from Hans's perspective.
Yes.
Tell us about that part of the book, and if Hans could talk, if he was awake, what would he say to us?
Well, I hope he'd say, I think you nailed it, Lynette. Because the second part of the book, and people say, is this a children's book or it's an adult book? And I would call it real fiction, because everybody in the book is real. Everybody involved in the book volunteered their time, which is amazing. And so I tried to add more humor to Hans, because we, as pet owners, I have 2 rescue dogs of my own. I know there's some things that we say to them that are confusing, like you're not supposed to chew the brush, and yet you take them to the vet and we put a brush in their mouth for their teeth. It's like, is this okay? Is this not okay? So some of those contradictions, if you will, I tried to tell in Hans's voice.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and bringing Hans. He was a very good boy. Hans, The Journey of a Kill Shelter Puppy and Homeless Veterans, is available for purchase online at Amazon.com or at Stars and Stripes, the flag store at 455 South Avenue, just in time for the holidays. And for more information about the Veterans Outreach Center, you can visit veteransoutreachcenter.org or call 585-546-1081.